welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We have a truly special story for you this evening. It's a tale that has been told for thousands of years, passed down through countless generations. Tonight, we will explore the entire story of Medusa, the famous figure from ancient Greek mythology. You may have heard her name before. You may know that she had snakes for hair and could turn people to stone with just one look. But there is so much more to her story than that. Medusa's tale is one of beauty and sorrow, of gods and mortals, of courage and adventure. It is a story that takes us to magical islands, ancient temples, and faraway lands. And I think you will find it the perfect companion as you drift off to sleep tonight. Before we begin our journey into the ancient world, let's take a moment to settle in and relax. Make yourself comfortable wherever you are. Let your body sink into your bed or your favorite resting place. Feel the softness beneath you. Let your muscles go loose and easy. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. Feel your chest rise gently. Hold it for just a moment. And now, let it out slowly through your mouth. Feel your body relax even more with each breath. As you breathe in and out, let go of any worries from your day. Let go of any thoughts about tomorrow. Right now, in this moment, there is nothing you need to do. There is nowhere you need to be. You are safe. You are warm. You are comfortable. Imagine yourself on a peaceful hillside in ancient Greece. The grass beneath you is soft and cool. The air smells of wild herbs and flowers. Olive trees sway gently in a warm breeze. The sky above is a deep, peaceful blue, dotted with soft white clouds. The sun is warm on your skin, but not too hot. Everything feels calm and still. This is the world where our story takes place. A world of gods and heroes, of magic and wonder. And as you rest here on this quiet hillside, I will tell you the entire story of Medusa, from the very beginning to the very end. Let your eyes close now, if they haven't already. Let your breathing become slow and easy, and let your mind drift back through the ages, to a time long, long ago. Our story begins on a small island in the Aegean Sea. The ancient Greeks called this sea the Aegean Pelagos. Its waters are a beautiful deep blue, dotted with hundreds of small islands. The waves are gentle near the shore, lapping softly against sandy beaches and rocky cliffs. The air smells of salt and wild herbs. Olive trees grow on the hillsides, their silver-green leaves rustling in the warm breeze. In ancient times, the Greeks believed that every part of nature was alive with divine presence. The sea was ruled by Poseidon. The sky belonged to Zeus. The forests were home to nymphs and spirits. Every stream, every mountain, every grove of trees had its own guardian deity. The world was full of magic and wonder. It was in this magical world that our story takes place. This island was a place of great beauty. It had rocky shores where waves crashed and foamed. It had green hills covered with flowers. It had small villages where simple people lived simple lives. On this island, there lived a young woman named Medusa. She was not yet the monster of legend. She was not yet the creature with snakes for hair. No, at the start of our story, Medusa was something quite different. She was a beautiful young woman, thought by many to be one of the most beautiful women in all of Greece. Medusa had two sisters. Their names were Steno and Euryale. The three sisters were called the Gorgons, but in those early days, they were not the fearsome creatures they would later become. They were simply three sisters who lived together on their small island home. Medusa was the youngest of the three. She was also the only one who was mortal, which means she could grow old and die, just like any other human being. Her two older sisters were immortal. They would live forever. But Medusa had been born different. She had been born human. The ancient Greek poet Hesiod, who lived about 2,700 years ago, wrote about Medusa and her sisters. He told us that Medusa was mortal, while her sisters were not. This small fact would become very important later in our story. Medusa's beauty was known far and wide. People traveled from distant lands just to catch a glimpse of her. Her hair was especially famous. It was long and flowing, the color of dark honey in the sunlight. It moved like silk in the wind. It shone like a river of gold. Many people said that her hair was her greatest beauty. Some ancient writers tell us that Medusa served as a priestess in a temple of Athena. Priestesses were women who devoted their lives to serving a particular god or goddess. They performed rituals, kept the temple clean, and helped people who came to pray. It was considered a great honor to be chosen as a priestess. If Medusa was indeed a priestess, she would have spent her days in quiet devotion. She would have burned sweet incense that filled the temple with fragrant smoke. She would have placed offerings of fruit and flowers before the statue of the goddess. She would have sung hymns and recited prayers, her voice echoing off the marble walls. The temples of ancient Greece were beautiful places. They were built of gleaming white stone and decorated with colorful paintings and sculptures. Tall columns held up the roofs, and sunlight streamed in through open doorways. The floors were smooth and cool beneath one's feet. There was a sense of peace and sacredness inside these holy spaces. Medusa lived a quiet life on her island. She helped her sisters with daily tasks. She walked along the shore and collected shells. She sat on the hillsides and watched the clouds drift by. She was content and peaceful. But the ancient Greek stories teach us that beauty can sometimes bring trouble. The more beautiful someone was, the more attention they received, and not all attention was welcome. The gods themselves often took notice of beautiful mortals, and when the gods took notice, things could become very complicated indeed. You see, the ancient Greeks believed in many gods and goddesses. These powerful beings lived on top of a tall mountain called Mount Olympus. From there, they watched over the world of mortals. They could help people or hurt them. They could give gifts or take them away. and they often became interested in the affairs of humans, sometimes in ways that changed those humans' lives forever. One of the most important gods was Poseidon. He was the god of the sea. He ruled over all the oceans and rivers and lakes. He could calm the waters or stir up terrible storms. Sailors prayed to him for safe journeys. Fishermen asked for his blessing before setting out in their boats. Poseidon was a powerful and proud god. He was also the brother of Zeus, the king of all the gods. When Poseidon wanted something, he usually got it. And one day, Poseidon noticed Medusa. He saw her walking along the shore of her island. He watched her long, beautiful hair blow in the sea breeze. He decided that he wanted her for himself. To a god like Poseidon, mortals were small and weak. Their wishes and feelings did not matter very much. What mattered was what the god wanted. Some ancient writers tell us that Medusa tried to escape from Poseidon. She ran from the shore and sought shelter in a temple, but not just any temple. She ran to a temple of Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Athena's temple was supposed to be a sacred place. It was supposed to be a place of safety and peace. No violence was allowed within its walls. Many people believed that if they entered a temple, they would be protected from harm. But Poseidon did not care about the rules of temples. He did not care that this was Athena's sacred space. He was a great god, and he did as he pleased. And so, within the walls of Athena's temple, Poseidon caught up with Medusa. What happened next was a terrible thing. Poseidon took Medusa against her will. He violated the sacred space of Athena's temple. And when it was over, he simply left, as if nothing important had happened. But something very important had happened, and the consequences would be felt by Medusa for the rest of her life. As you continue to relax, let your body sink even deeper into comfort. Feel the softness of your pillow beneath your head. Feel the warmth of your blankets around you. Your breathing is slow and steady now. Your mind is calm and quiet. The story continues to unfold like a gentle dream. Let it carry you along like a boat drifting on a peaceful sea. Athena was one of the most important goddesses on Mount Olympus. She was the goddess of wisdom, of crafts, and of strategic warfare. She was born in an unusual way. According to myth, she sprang fully grown from the head of her father, Zeus. She emerged already wearing armor and carrying a shield and spear. Athena valued cleverness and skill. She helped heroes on their quests. She watched over cities and protected them from harm. But she also had a fierce temper. She did not like to be disrespected, and she certainly did not like it when her sacred temples were violated. When Athena learned what had happened in her temple, she was furious. But here is where the ancient stories become difficult and sad. Athena did not direct her anger at Poseidon. Perhaps she could not. Poseidon was her uncle, after all, and a great god in his own right. To punish him directly would have been very dangerous, even for a goddess like Athena. Instead, Athena turned her anger toward Medusa. This might seem unfair to us today. Medusa had not done anything wrong. She had been attacked. She had been the victim. But in the world of the ancient Greek gods, fairness did not always matter. What mattered was power, and Athena had the power to punish whoever she chose. Athena appeared before Medusa. The goddess was tall and proud, her grey eyes cold with anger. She looked at the young woman who had once been so beautiful, and she spoke words of punishment that would change Medusa forever. Athena cursed Medusa's famous beauty. The long, flowing hair that everyone had admired began to change. Each strand twisted and writhed. Each lock transformed into something else entirely. When the change was complete, Medusa no longer had beautiful golden hair. Instead, her head was covered with living snakes. The snakes hissed and coiled. They moved constantly, never staying still. Where once there had been silk-soft waves of hair, now there were dozens of serpents, their scales gleaming, their tiny eyes watching, their forked tongues flicking in and out. The snakes were not separate creatures. They were part of Medusa now, growing from her scalp like hair, feeling what she felt, alive with her own life force. Imagine how strange and frightening this must have been for Medusa. Where once she could run her fingers through soft, silky hair, now she felt the cool, smooth scales of serpents. Where once her hair had lain still when she slept, now it moved and writhed and hissed, even in her dreams. The snakes were always there, always moving, always reminding her of what she had become. But Athena was not finished. She changed Medusa's face as well. The soft, lovely features became hard and monstrous. Her skin grew rough and scaled. Her eyes, once gentle and bright, became something terrible and strange. And then Athena gave Medusa the most terrible part of her curse. She gave her a gaze that could turn any living creature to stone. If anyone looked directly into Medusa's eyes, they would instantly become a statue. Their flesh would harden, their body would freeze. They would become cold, grey stone in the space of a single heartbeat. This curse meant that Medusa could never look at another person face to face again. She could never see a friend or hold a loved one. Anyone who saw her would either turn to stone or have to look away in fear. She was completely and utterly alone. The Roman poet Ovid wrote about this curse in his famous book called the Metamorphoses, which means transformations. He described how Medusa's beautiful hair was changed into snakes as a punishment. He told how her looks, which had once made her admired, now made her terrifying. Some ancient writers suggest that Athena also transformed Medusa's sisters, Stheno and Euryale. These two immortal Gorgons were also given snaky hair and monstrous forms. Perhaps they stood by their sister and shared her fate. Perhaps Athena simply wanted all the Gorgons to be terrible creatures who would frighten anyone who came near. After the transformation, the three Gorgon sisters were banished. They could not stay among normal people. Anyone who saw them would either die or run away screaming. So they went to live at the very edge of the world, in a dark and lonely place where few mortals ever traveled. Different ancient writers placed the Gorgons' home in different locations. Some said they lived far to the west, near the Garden of the Hesperides, where golden apples grew on magical trees. Others said they lived in a land of eternal twilight, where the sun never fully rose and never fully set. Still others placed them in a rocky wasteland where nothing green would grow. Wherever it was, the Gorgons' home became a place of horror. Around it, scattered across the landscape, were dozens of stone statues. These were the remains of those who had come too close, curious travelers, lost sailors, unlucky hunters. All of them had looked upon Medusa and been turned to stone. They stood frozen in poses of shock and fear, forever trapped in their last moment of life. The land around the Gorgons' lair was dark and cold. The sun never seemed to shine brightly there. Mist hung low over the rocky ground. Strange winds moaned through the caves and crevices. No birds sang, no flowers bloomed. It was as if the very earth knew that something terrible lived there and had turned away from life. The stone statues stood like silent guardians around Medusa's home. Some were soldiers in full armor, their shields raised, their swords drawn. They had come to kill the monster and win fame, but they had failed. Others were ordinary people, farmers and fishermen who had wandered too far from home. Their faces were frozen in expressions of surprise and terror. Rain fell on them, but they did not feel it. Wind blew past them, but they did not move. They would stand there forever, eternal monuments to Medusa's deadly power. Medusa spent many long years in this lonely place. She who had once walked freely on sunny beaches, now hid in dark caves. She who had once been surrounded by admirers, now lived with only her monstrous sisters for company. The snakes on her head were her only companions, hissing and coiling, a constant reminder of what she had become. The ancient Greeks believed that the Gorgons had other fearsome features as well. Some stories described them with bronze hands that were sharp as claws. Others mention golden wings that let them fly through the air. Some say they had tusks, like wild boars, and skin that could not be pierced by any weapon. Whether all these details are true or not, one thing was certain. Medusa had become something feared by all. Her name was spoken in whispers. Parents told their children about her as a warning. Sailors prayed they would never be blown off course to wherever she lived. And yet, despite all the fear and all the horror, Medusa was still, in many ways, just a young woman. A young woman who had been wronged, punished for something that was not her fault, and condemned to spend the rest of her days as a monster. Let yourself feel compassion for Medusa as you rest. Feel how comfortable you are, how safe and warm. Your body is so relaxed now. Your thoughts are soft and gentle, like clouds drifting across a peaceful sky. The story continues, flowing like a quiet stream. Let it wash over you, carrying you deeper into rest. Many years passed. Medusa lived in her dark home at the edge of the world, and few dared to seek her out. But in a kingdom far away, events were unfolding that would eventually bring a hero to her door. In a city called Argos, there lived a king named Perseus. This king had a daughter named Dano, who was very beautiful. But Perseus was not happy. He had no son, and he worried about who would rule after him. So he went to consult an oracle. An oracle was a person who could speak with the gods and learn about the future. Oracles were very important in ancient Greece. People traveled long distances to ask them questions. Kings and generals would not make important decisions without first asking an oracle for advice. The oracle told Perseus something terrible. She said that he would never have a son, but she also said that his daughter Dano would have a son, and that this grandson would one day kill Perseus himself. Perseus was horrified. He could not bear the thought of being killed by his own grandson, so he decided to make sure that Dano never had any children. He locked her away in a tower made of bronze. The tower had no doors, only a small opening at the top to let in air and light. No man could reach her. She was completely cut off from the world. But Perseus forgot one thing. He could keep out mortal men, but he could not keep out the gods. Zeus, the king of the gods, looked down from Mount Olympus and saw Dano in her bronze tower. He thought she was beautiful, and he decided to visit her. Zeus had the power to change his form into anything he wanted, so he transformed himself into a shower of golden rain. This golden rain fell through the opening at the top of the tower and came down to where Dano sat alone. From this magical visit, Dano became pregnant. She gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Perseus. When Perseus heard the baby crying, he was filled with fear. He remembered the oracle's prophecy. This baby would grow up to kill him. But Perseus could not bring himself to kill his own daughter and grandson directly. He feared that the gods would punish him for such a horrible act. So instead, he put Dano and baby Perseus in a wooden chest. He set the chest adrift on the sea. He told himself that if they died, it was not his fault. It was the will of the waves and the wind. The chest floated on the water for many days and many nights. Dano held her baby close and prayed for help. The waves rocked them gently, and the stars watched over them from above. It seemed certain that they would drown. But the gods were watching. Zeus did not want his son to die, and so he guided the chest across the sea until it washed up on the shore of a small island called Syr. A kind fisherman named Dictys found the chest on the beach. He opened it and was amazed to find a woman and a baby inside, both still alive. He took them to his home and cared for them as if they were his own family. Perseus grew up on this island. He became strong and clever. He was a good young man who loved his mother and was grateful to Dictys for saving their lives. The island was peaceful, and for many years Perseus and Dano were happy. But the ruler of Seriphos was a man named Polydectes. He was the brother of Dictys, but he was nothing like the kind fisherman. Polydex was cruel and greedy, and as the years passed, he began to desire Dano for his wife. Dano did not want to marry Polydex. She found him harsh and unpleasant, but Polydex was the king, and he was not used to being told no. The only thing stopping him from taking Dano by force was Perseus. By now, Perseus had grown into a strong young man, and he protected his mother from the king's advances. Polydex needed to find a way to get rid of Perseus, so he came up with a clever plan. He announced that he was going to marry a different princess from a neighboring kingdom. He asked all the noblemen of his island to bring him wedding gifts. Specifically, he asked each man to bring him a horse. Perseus did not have a horse to give. He was not wealthy, and he had grown up as the adopted son of a simple fisherman. But he wanted to show that he was brave and honorable. So when Polydex asked him what gift he would bring, Perseus spoke boldly. "I will bring you anything you ask for," Perseus said, "even the head of Medusa herself." This was exactly what Polydex had hoped to hear. The head of Medusa was an impossible gift. Everyone who went to find Medusa died. They were either turned to stone by her gaze or killed by her monstrous sisters. By sending Perseus on this quest, Polydex was sending him to his death. Polydex smiled and accepted the offer. "Very well," he said. "Bring me the head of Medusa. Until you do not return to this island." Perseus had made a promise he did not know how to keep. He had no idea where Medusa lived. He had no weapon that could harm her. He had no way to look at her without being turned to stone. It seemed like he was doomed. But Perseus was not just any young man. He was the son of Zeus, and the gods of Olympus were watching over him. Rest now and feel how peaceful your body has become. Your arms and legs are heavy and warm. Your face is relaxed. Your jaw is loose. Your breathing continues, slow and steady, in and out, in and out. The hero's journey is just beginning. Let the story carry you along, like a leaf floating on a gentle current. Perseus walked alone along the shore of Seriphos, wondering how he could possibly complete his quest. The waves crashed softly on the rocks. The seabirds called overhead. Perseus felt lost and alone. But then something wonderful happened. Two figures appeared before him, shimmering in the sunlight. They were not ordinary people. They were gods. The first was Hermes, the messenger of the gods. He had wings on his sandals and a mischievous smile on his face. Hermes was known for being clever and quick. He could travel between the world of the gods and the world of mortals in the blink of an eye. The second was Athena herself. Yes, the same goddess who had cursed Medusa long ago. She wore her battle armor and carried her famous shield. Her grey eyes were wise and watchful. You might wonder why Athena would help Perseus kill Medusa. After all, she was the one who had made Medusa into a monster in the first place. But the Greek myths are full of such puzzles. Perhaps Athena wanted Medusa's head for her own purposes. Perhaps she simply enjoyed helping heroes on their quests. Whatever the reason, she appeared before Perseus and offered her aid. Hermes spoke first. "Perseus, son of Zeus, we have come to help you. Your quest is dangerous, but it is not impossible. We will guide you and give you the tools you need." Athena nodded. "Listen carefully to what we tell you. If you follow our instructions exactly, you may succeed where all others have failed." The gods explained that Perseus could not simply go straight to Medusa's lair. He did not have the weapons or tools he would need. First, he had to visit the three ancient sisters who shared a single eye and a single tooth between them. These old women knew the location of certain special things that Perseus would need for his quest. The lived far to the north, in a land of cold and mist. Getting there would be a long journey, but Hermes and Athena would show Perseus the way, and so Perseus set off on his adventure. He traveled for many days across land and sea. He crossed mountains and valleys, rivers and forests. The gods helped him find his path when he got lost. They protected him from dangers along the way. At last, Perseus came to the cold, misty land where the lived. These three sisters were called Dino, Enyo, and Pemphredo. They were the sisters of the Gorgons, which made them Medusa's sisters as well. But unlike the Gorgons, they were not immortal and not powerful. They were simply very, very old. The sat together on a rocky hill, passing their single eye back and forth between them. When one sister held the eye, she could see. The other two sat blind, waiting for their turn. It was the same with their single tooth. Only the sister who held the tooth could eat. Perseus watched them for a while, learning their routine. Then, at just the right moment, he made his move. When one sister was passing the eye to another, Perseus reached out and grabbed it before the second sister could take it. "Who's there?" the sisters cried out, suddenly all blind and helpless. "Give us back our eye," they wailed. "I will return your eye," Perseus said, "but only if you tell me what I need to know. Where can I find the items I need to defeat Medusa? Tell me, and I will give you back your sight." The had no choice. They could not see without their eye. They could not force Perseus to give it back, so they told him what he wanted to know. They told Perseus about the Hesperides, the nymphs who lived in a beautiful garden at the edge of the world. These nymphs guarded special treasures that would help Perseus on his quest. The described exactly where to find the garden and how to get there. Perseus kept his promise. He returned the eye to the sisters and continued on his way. The ancient writer Apollodorus, who collected many Greek myths about 2,000 years ago, recorded this story of Perseus and the He described how the hero tricked the old sisters into revealing their secrets. After more long days of travel, Perseus reached the garden of the Hesperides. This garden was a place of incredible beauty. The grass was soft and green. The flowers bloomed in every color. Golden apples hung from the branches of a magical tree. Sweet music seemed to fill the air. The Hesperides were the daughters of Atlas, the giant who held up the sky. They were kind and gentle, and they welcomed Perseus warmly. When they learned of his quest, they agreed to help him. The nymphs gave Perseus 3 magical items. The first was a bag called a cabeces. This bag was special because it could safely hold Medusa's head after Perseus cut it off. The head would still be dangerous even after death. Anyone who looked at it would still be turned to stone, but the cabeces would contain its power. The second item was a cap of darkness. This cap had the power to make whoever wore it invisible. It had been made by Hades, the god of the underworld, and given to the Hesperides for safekeeping. With this cap on his head, Perseus could approach Medusa without being seen. The third item was a pair of winged sandals, similar to the ones Hermes wore. These sandals would let Perseus fly through the air. He could soar over mountains and oceans, covering great distances in very little time. Hermes had also given Perseus a special sword. This sword was called a harp. It had a curved blade that looked almost like a sickle. The blade was so sharp that it could cut through anything, even the neck of a Gorgon. Finally, Athena gave Perseus her own polished bronze shield. The shield was so shiny and smooth that you could see your reflection in it, like a mirror. This would be very important for fighting Medusa. By looking at Medusa's reflection in the shield, Perseus could see where she was without looking directly at her face. He could avoid her deadly gaze. With all these magical tools, Perseus was finally ready to face Medusa. He put on the winged sandals and rose into the air. He flew west, toward the setting sun, toward the dark land where the Gorgons lived. Feel yourself drifting now, floating gently like Perseus on his winged sandals. You are safe and warm, carried along by the soft current of the story. Your body is so relaxed, so comfortable. There is nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. The night is quiet and peaceful. Your breath flows in and out, slow and easy. The story continues, gentle and calm. Perseus flew for a long time over endless seas. The water below was dark and deep. The sky around him grew dimmer as he traveled west, away from the rising sun and toward a land of eternal twilight. At last, he saw land below him. It was a barren, rocky place. Nothing green grew there. The ground was grey and cracked. Strange rock formations jutted up from the earth like frozen fingers, and scattered everywhere were statues, dozens and dozens of stone figures. These were the victims of Medusa, warriors in armor, hands still raised to shield their faces, shepherds with their crooks, caught in the middle of running away, sailors who had wandered too far from shore. All of them turned to cold grey stone, their final expressions frozen forever in looks of terror. Perseus knew he had found the right place. He put on the cap of darkness and became invisible. Even he could not see himself when he looked down at his own hands. He gripped the harp tightly and held Athena's shield in front of him. Using the shield as a mirror, Perseus flew carefully over the rocky landscape. He looked only at the reflection in the bronze, never directly at what lay ahead. In the reflection, he could see the stone statues passing below him. He could see the dark openings of caves in the hillsides. He could see everything without risking his life. And then he saw them. In the reflection of the shield, Perseus spotted 3 figures lying on the ground near the entrance to a large cave. They were sleeping. Their bodies were monstrous, with scales and claws and great bronze wings folded against their backs. And on their heads, instead of hair, were masses of writhing snakes, the Gorgons. Perseus studied them carefully in the mirror of the shield. 2 of them, Steno and Euryale, lay on either side. They were larger and stronger looking than the third. In the middle, smaller than her sisters, lay Medusa. Perseus knew that Medusa was the only one of the 3 who could be killed. Her sisters were immortal. No weapon could harm them. But Medusa was mortal. She could die by the blade of his sword. Moving as quietly as he could, Perseus flew closer. The snakes on the Gorgons' heads were sleeping too, their coils still, their eyes closed. Perseus held his breath. He could hear the soft hissing of the snakes and the deep, rumbling breathing of the monsters. Looking only at the reflection in his shield, Perseus positioned himself above Medusa. He raised the harp high, its curved blade gleaming even in the dim light of that twilight land. Then, with one swift motion, he brought the sword down. The blade was so sharp that it cut through Medusa's neck in a single stroke. Her head came free from her body. The snakes on her head woke and began to hiss and writhe, but it was too late. Medusa was dead, and then something incredible happened. From the wound in Medusa's neck, where her blood spilled onto the ground, 2 new beings emerged. The first was a beautiful white horse with great feathered wings. It was Pegasus, the famous flying horse of Greek mythology. The second was a giant warrior named Chrysaor, who carried a golden sword. You see, Medusa had been pregnant with Poseidon's children all this time. When she died, Pegasus and Chrysaor were finally born from her body. They sprang forth fully grown, as many magical beings do in Greek myths. The ancient poet Hesiod described this moment in his Theogony, a poem about the origins of the gods. He wrote that Pegasus and Chrysaor were born from Medusa when Perseus cut off her head. Pegasus would go on to have many adventures of his own, eventually becoming a constellation in the night sky. But Perseus did not have time to wonder at these new beings. The commotion had woken Medusa's sisters, Steno and Euryale. They rose up with terrible screams, their wings spreading wide, their snaky hair lashing in fury. They searched for their sister's killer, but they could not see him. Perseus was still wearing the cap of darkness. He was invisible. While the Gorgon sisters raged and searched, Perseus quickly grabbed Medusa's head, being very careful not to look at it, and stuffed it into the magic bag the Hesperides had given him. Then he flew away as fast as his winged sandals could carry him. Steno and Euryale chased after the invisible hero. They could sense something was wrong, could smell the blood of their sister on the wind, but they could not see Perseus. They could not catch him. They flew back and forth, screaming in grief and anger, but it was no use. Perseus escaped into the sky, leaving the Gorgon's lair behind him forever. Let yourself rest deeply now. Feel how your whole body has become soft and heavy. Your mind is quiet, drifting peacefully. The exciting part of our story is over, and now we will follow Perseus as he makes his long journey home. Breathe slowly and easily, in and out, in and out. Let each breath carry you deeper into relaxation. Perseus flew across the sky, heading back toward the east, toward home. But his adventures were not quite over yet. The journey back would be long, and many things would happen along the way. As he flew over the northern coast of Africa, Perseus saw something that made him stop. Far below, on a rocky shore, was a young woman. She was chained to the rocks, wearing only a thin white dress. The waves crashed around her, and she seemed to be crying. Perseus flew down to get a closer look. The young woman's name was Andromeda, and she was a princess. Her mother, the Queen Cassiopeia, had made a terrible mistake. She had boasted that she and her daughter were more beautiful than the Nereids, the sea nymphs who served Poseidon. The Nereids were very offended. They complained to Poseidon, and Poseidon was angry. He sent a terrible sea monster to attack the kingdom. The monster destroyed ships and flooded villages. Many people died. The king, Andromeda's father, went to ask an oracle what could be done. The oracle gave a terrible answer. The only way to stop the monster was to sacrifice Andromeda. She had to be chained to the rocks and left for the monster to eat. And so, even though her parents loved her very much, Andromeda had been chained to the shore. She waited there, helpless and afraid, for the monster to come and devour her. When Perseus saw this, he was filled with pity. He flew down and spoke to Andromeda. She told him her story, and he decided to help her. If he could kill a Gorgon, surely he could kill a sea monster too. Perseus waited on the rocks beside Andromeda. He did not have to wait long. Soon the water began to churn and bubble. A massive dark shape rose from the depths. The sea monster had arrived. It was huge and horrible, with scales like shields and teeth like swords. Its eyes glowed with hunger. It opened its enormous mouth and lunged toward Andromeda. But Perseus was faster. He drew his harp and flew straight at the monster. He slashed at its neck, its eyes, its sides. The monster thrashed and roared, but Perseus was too quick for it. Again and again, his magic sword cut through the monster's tough hide. Finally, with one great blow, Perseus plunged his sword deep into the monster's heart. The creature let out a final roar and collapsed into the sea. Its massive body sank beneath the waves, and the water turned red with its blood. The ancient Roman poet Ovid described this battle in great detail. He told how Perseus swooped and dove, how the monsters snapped and raged, and how the hero finally emerged victorious. Perseus freed Andromeda from her chains. She fell into his arms, weeping with relief and gratitude. Perseus had saved her life. He asked her parents for permission to marry her, and they happily agreed. After a great wedding feast, Perseus and Andromeda left together to continue the journey home. The head of Medusa, still in its magic bag, proved useful many times during the rest of the journey. Once, when Perseus and Andromeda stopped to rest in the land of a giant named Atlas, the giant treated them rudely and tried to force them to leave. Perseus took out Medusa's head, being careful to look away himself, and held it up toward Atlas. The giant looked at it and was instantly turned to stone. He became a great mountain range, the Atlas Mountains, which still stands in northwestern Africa today. Another time, Perseus stopped at a banquet where a wicked king was about to force a woman to marry him. Perseus used Medusa's head to turn the king and all his soldiers to stone, saving the woman and all the guests. Wherever Perseus went, the head of Medusa was a powerful weapon. Even in death, Medusa's terrible gaze remained deadly, but Perseus was always careful. He knew the head could kill friends as easily as enemies. He kept it in the magic bag and only brought it out when absolutely necessary. Rest now, as Perseus rests. Feel how comfortable you are. Feel how peaceful and calm. Your body is warm and heavy. Your mind is quiet and still. The adventure is almost over. The hero is almost home. And soon, you too will drift into peaceful sleep. At last, after many long months of travel, Perseus returned to the island of Seriphos. He had the head of Medusa in his bag. He had his new wife Andromeda by his side, and he had fulfilled the impossible quest that King Polydex had given him. But when Perseus arrived on the island, he discovered that things had gotten worse in his absence. Polydex, certain that Perseus was dead, had finally tried to force Dano to marry him. She had refused and had fled to a temple for safety. The kind fisherman Dictys was protecting her as best he could, but Polydex was threatening to punish them both. Perseus was furious. He went straight to Polydex's palace, where the king was having a feast with his soldiers and supporters. When Perseus walked in, Polydex was shocked and frightened. He had been so sure that Perseus would die trying to get Medusa's head, and now here was the young hero, very much alive, standing in his hall. "I have returned," Perseus announced, "and I have brought the gift I promised." He reached into his bag and pulled out the head of Medusa. Everyone in the hall who was looking, including Polydex himself, was instantly turned to stone. The wicked king became a statue, frozen forever with a look of terror on his face. Perseus made the kind fisherman Dictys the new king of Seriphos. Dictys had been good to him and his mother for many years. He deserved to rule in place of his cruel brother. After this, Perseus gave the magical items back to the gods. The winged sandals, the cap of darkness, and the magic bag all went back to Hermes, who returned them to the Hesperides and to Hades. The harp sword was placed in the treasure houses of the gods. As for Medusa's head, Perseus gave it to Athena. Some stories say he simply gave it to her as a gift of thanks for her help. Others say she asked for it specifically. Either way, Athena mounted Medusa's head on her famous shield, the Aegis. Even as a dead image on a shield, Medusa's face was terrifying. It was meant to frighten enemies and protect Athena in battle. You can see images of Athena's shield with Medusa's head on it in many works of ancient Greek art. Painters put it on vases. Sculptors carved it into statues and buildings. The head of Medusa, called the Gorgon, became a popular symbol in ancient Greece. People put it on shields, on jewelry, on doors and walls. They believed it had the power to ward off evil. This belief in the Gorgon lasted for many centuries. The ancient Greeks used it, and so did the Romans after them. Even today, you can see Medusa's image on the logo of the fashion company Versace, showing how her legend has lasted through thousands of years. There is one more part to Perseus's story, and it brings us back to where we began. Remember King Acrisius, who had locked Dano in a bronze tower and then set her adrift on the sea. He was still alive, and he still feared the prophecy that his grandson would kill him. When Acrisius heard that Perseus had returned and done such incredible deeds, he was terrified. He fled from his kingdom of Argos and went far away, hoping to escape his fate. Some time later, Perseus traveled to a city called Larissa to compete in athletic games. He was now a famous hero, and people invited him to events everywhere. At these games, Perseus participated in a discus throwing competition. What Perseus did not know was that his grandfather, Acrisius, was in the crowd, watching. Acrisius had come to these games thinking he was safe so far from home. He did not know that Perseus would be there. When it was Perseus's turn, he picked up the heavy bronze discus and spun around to throw it. But the wind caught the discus, or perhaps the gods guided it. The discus flew off course. It sailed into the crowd of spectators and struck an old man in the head. The old man was Acrisius. He died instantly. When Perseus discovered what had happened, he was filled with grief. He had never wanted to harm his grandfather. He had barely even known the man. But the prophecy had come true anyway. There was nothing anyone could do to change what the fates had decided. This part of the story reminds us of an important belief in ancient Greek culture, that fate cannot be escaped. No matter what people do, no matter how hard they try to avoid their destiny, it will find them in the end. Acrisius had done terrible things to try to prevent the prophecy from coming true. He had locked up his daughter. He had tried to drown her and her baby. He had run away and hidden from his grandson, and none of it mattered. In the end, the prophecy came true anyway. Perseus went on to live a long and happy life. He and Andromeda had many children together. He became the king of 2 different cities and was remembered as one of the greatest heroes in all of Greek mythology. And Medusa, her story was over, but her legend was just beginning. For thousands of years, people have told and retold the story of Medusa. They have painted her on pottery and carved her in marble. They have written poems and plays and books about her. They have made movies and television shows featuring her character. But the meaning of Medusa's story has changed over time. To the ancient Greeks, Medusa was a monster to be feared and destroyed. Her story was part of Perseus's heroic journey. It showed how a brave young man could overcome impossible odds with the help of the gods. Medusa herself was just an obstacle, a creature to be defeated. But in more recent times, many people have looked at Medusa's story differently. They have noticed that Medusa did not choose to become a monster. She was a victim of Poseidon and then punished by Athena for something that was not her fault. In this view, Medusa is a tragic figure, a symbol of how the powerless are sometimes blamed for the crimes committed against them. Some modern thinkers see Medusa as a symbol of feminine power. Her deadly gaze could be understood as the power of women to resist those who would harm them. In this interpretation, Medusa is not a monster to be feared, but a protector to be respected. The philosopher Hegel wrote about Medusa as a symbol of nature's power to terrify and amaze us. The psychologist Sigmund Freud saw her as a symbol of deep fears that humans carry in their subconscious minds. The feminist writer Helene Sixus wrote a famous essay called The Laugh of the Medusa, in which she used Medusa as a symbol of women's creative power and voice. Ancient texts give us clues about how the Greeks understood Medusa. The poet Hesiod, who lived around 700 BCE, wrote about her in his Theogony. The poet Pindar, who lived around 500 BCE, described her in his Olympic odes. The playwright Euripides mentioned her in several of his plays. The Roman poet Ovid gave us the most detailed version of her story in his Metamorphoses, written around the year 08 CE. All these writers contributed to the legend of Medusa. They added details and changed the story in various ways. The Medusa we know today is a combination of all their different versions. What is certain is that Medusa has become one of the most recognizable figures in all of world mythology. Her image, with its staring eyes and writhing snakes, has been reproduced billions of times over thousands of years. She has become a symbol that means many different things to different people. Perhaps that is the true power of mythology. The stories change and grow over time. They mean different things to different generations. But they never completely go away. They remain with us, like the stone statues around Medusa's lair, frozen in time yet still somehow alive. And now, as our story comes to an end, let yourself sink even deeper into relaxation. The tale of Medusa is complete. You have heard her whole story, from beginning to end. You have learned about Medusa, the maiden, beautiful and innocent, walking on the shores of her island home. You have learned about Medusa, the monster, cursed and alone, living in the shadows at the edge of the world. You have learned about Perseus, the hero, brave and determined, setting out on his impossible quest. And you have learned about all the magical items and strange beings that filled the world of ancient Greece. These stories were first told thousands of years ago, around campfires and in market squares, in temples and in homes. Parents told them to their children, teachers told them to their students. And now, tonight, the stories have been told to you. Let the images from the story drift through your mind like clouds across a peaceful sky. See the blue waters of the Aegean Sea. See the golden apples in the garden of the Hesperides. See the stars shining down on Perseus as he flies through the night sky on his winged sandals. Feel how relaxed your body has become. Your arms are heavy and warm. Your legs are heavy and warm. Your whole body is sinking deeper and deeper into comfort. Your breathing is slow and steady, in and out, in and out. Each breath carries you closer to peaceful sleep. The snakes on Medusa's head are sleeping now, their coils still and quiet. The Gorgon sisters rest in their distant lair. Perseus and Andromeda are safe in their palace, their adventures over. And you are safe too, warm in your bed, ready for dreams. Let go of the story now. Let it drift away like a boat floating out to sea. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to think about anything. All you need to do is rest. The night is quiet and still. The stars are shining softly outside your window. The whole world is peaceful and calm. Let your eyes stay closed. Let your body stay relaxed. Let your mind stay quiet and still. Sleep is coming now, gentle and warm, like a soft blanket being pulled up around you. It will carry you away to a land of pleasant dreams, and in the morning you will wake refreshed and rested, ready for a new day. But for now, there is only rest. There is only peace. There is only the soft, quiet darkness of a perfect night's sleep. Good night.